Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Nasdaq 100 breaks 3,000 for the first time in over a decade. U.S. shale supply is shifting the global energy balance. Housing prices are surging, and we are looking at another bubble, the student loan bubble. Where would you like to start, Maury?
Well, I'd like to start with the stock market.
Okay.
That is very much misunderstood. People say, well, how can the stock market be doing so well when we have high unemployment, when manufacturing is coming back, but not too much. Just as we sit here today, manufacturing was off in April. So I would say we're in a stable situation as far as the economy is concerned. It's better than I thought it would be, but not as good as it could be under proper Washington political stewardship. Exactly correct. And so the question is, how come the stock market is doing so well? It's rather simple. There is so much money around. There are trillions of dollars sitting on the balance sheets of corporations. For instance, if you take business corporations in this country, you're talking about $3 trillion that is not being used. If you're talking the banks have well over $1 trillion, as you pointed out before we started the show, that the Fed is on another quantitative easing. They're buying up 80.
Well, that's a nice way to put it, but just tell the folks what they're doing. They're printing money.
Well, yeah, that's also misunderstood. What they're doing is they are buying up mortgage-backed securities as well as Treasury debt.
Junk.
And it's not junk when they buy it because they put a price on it. You're right about the mortgage-backed securities, because if they didn't buy it, it would be junk because
nobody wants it.
It would be worthless.
Right.
But when they buy it, they put a price on it. But the point is that that's only one element. The other element is a huge amount of money that reposes in the balance sheets of American companies. But there's another factor. There is more money being invested in the United States of America by other countries than any other country combined as far as what's coming in. And this money is going into fixed assets, buildings, businesses, offices, but it's also going into the American stock market, because I've talked to investment experts from overseas, and they say the American stock market is the best stock market in the world today. It's the cheapest stock market. Even now, the price-earning ratio, I don't want to get too technical, but traditionally speaking, you go back 80, 90, 100 years, if it was under 15, it was cheap, or it was still below where it should be. If it was over 15, for whatever reason, it was getting a little too expensive. We're still a little bit below the 15 mark, even though we've come all the way back from the Dow Jones, which also, by the way, hit a record in the last couple of weeks of 15,000, and as we speak today, it's like 15,180. The Standard & Poor's 500, which is a broader measure than the Dow Jones, that's up over 1,600. These are marks that have never been reached before.
And at the same time, gold is plummeting.
Yes, well, we've been through the gold
talk
many times. You know, I am the anti-gold bug, if there is such a thing. I think it's been oversold. People don't understand it. 1/3 of all the gold in the world reposes on banks. I notice today our friend George Soros has cut back on his holdings in his fund that is exclusively gold. Gold is a gamble in the sense, and you said it in the last show, you can't eat it. It doesn't generate any interest. And if you have a disaster and you got a gold bar in your hand and you go try to buy something, good luck. Gold is something that's been oversold, and when it went from as low as 300 and 400
to almost $2,000.
Yeah, well, that was a bubble in the sense it was promoted. The only thing you can say about gold, you don't use gold for industrial purposes. You don't use gold, you use it a little bit in jewelry, but a very minor part of it. And there isn't really that much around. You take 3 major Olympic-sized swimming pools, and you could if you melted all the gold, it would fill those pools, and that's it. So there isn't that much there, I admit that. So the demand, if there is a demand that's built up out of hysteria or out of the fact that people figure, well, if we have gold, it's better than currency. I still, by the way, I subscribe to the fact that the way the American stock market is going today, with the kind of, and I'm getting that from overseas people, they say they love the American stock market. It's much better than any other stock market in the world. And I'd never heard that before. It's because of the, you know, we can criticize ourselves rightfully, but it's how others see us from an economic standpoint, and they think we're in pretty darn good shape.
What about the student loan bubble?
Well, the student loan, that should have never happened. This was just like...
I'm sure most Americans don't even know what we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about student loans in order to get every kid that ever wanted to go to college, whether he was qualified or not. This is and this has been accelerated during the Obama administration. If a poor kid wanted to go to college and he was able to work his way through high school, let him go to college, and we'll pay for it. All he has to do is take out a loan. And the word got out, don't worry about it. If things get tough, we'll work it out. Just like the housing market. The housing market was a bubble because probably 2/3 of the houses that were built shouldn't have been built because the people that bought them couldn't afford them. They didn't have the income to pay the mortgage. You got the same thing now with the student loans.
The thing is, they had the money to pay the mortgage when they started out with their subprime mortgage. But by the time that shifted and the interest rate changed, that's when they got swamped.
No, they never had the, no, that's, I'm sorry to differentiate, but the point is, I wouldn't say most, but I'd say a good half of the people that bought houses really didn't have the income to handle a mortgage, which was maybe a 6% mortgage for 30 years or something. But there was always, it was during the Clinton administration, it started with Carter, the fact, you know, we'll back you up, and, you know, they were redlining certain communities, and the banks were taken to task.
The Fair Housing Act.
Yeah, that made it possible for anybody that you were discriminating. If you were a banker and you were turning somebody down for a housing loan, loans were easy to get because the banks figured, we'll take a chance rather than fight the government. The government said...
The government's demanding that you give these people loans.
They were demanding, and these people, this became affirmative action of the worst kind.
On steroids.
Yeah, it's well put. And the point is that if you didn't do what you felt as a businessman you shouldn't do, then you were accused of racism, or the fact that you were against the Latinos, you were against blacks, you were against anybody that you didn't want to give a loan to. And the same thing has happened with student loans. People have gone to college, and what do people in college take? And they take liberal arts, they take art appreciation, they get into the kind of
green philosophy.
You know, and what's happened to vocational and technical schools? They're out of business. Look, let's face it, everybody can't be a brainchild. I mean, a lot of people are needed to fix things. Mechanics, plumbers, plasterers, you know, latherers, whatever you want to say. And these people are very important. Well, these people aren't, the mechanics aren't around anymore because everybody thinks, socially speaking, they need to uplift themselves by getting a degree. Well, now, the degreed people today aren't getting any jobs because, first of all, they don't have the kind of talents that are needed even in a more limited employment era.
We only have a minute left. How much money are we talking about in this student loan bubble?
It's now $1 trillion. It's up 70% from the time that Obama came into office.
It's up 70%.
Yeah.
Along with food stamps, unemployment,
also,
disability.
Would you believe that even in the Carter years, and we're no friends of Carter, the basic debt, the U.S. debt was $1 trillion. So the $1 trillion debt we had for everything is now the same as the debt we have only on student loans.
We need to take a quick break. We'll return with more economic news, our global outlook, and history segments. For more information about showtimes, channels, if you'd like to email us with a quick comment, just go to our website, theworldreport.org. Today's great quote comes from Thomas Jefferson. A government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take everything you have away. We'll be right back.